Good morning. This is World Conflict Zone. I wanted to try something different and show you Flight Radar 24 as of this morning. So let's just kind of go from place to place and see what is actually happening. For clarification, commercial flights have been deleted off of here, and it's really cargo, military items, lighter than air, drones, things of that nature. I have found that having at least a cargo up gives you an idea of, such as like if China is delivering something to Iran or Russia's delivering something to Iran, or something's heading into Venezuela, it can be duly noted. With that said, let's begin. And we're going to scroll out here. We're going to start off in Venezuela to see what's happening this morning. All right, so we can see there's some rain. And now let's take a look at what this one is. Country of origin, it's from itself. And obviously it isn't really fully indicating what it is. It says not available. And it's taken off from the capital there. Not sure where it's heading. All right, so let's look around. There's a helicopter right here. The country of origin is the United States, and there's the aircraft type, and it's taken off from right there. Let's see, we see some helicopter, right? Nothing fancy so far this morning from Puerto Rico. Just a couple of what appears to be some helicopters. And I've seen those two types of flight craft before, so nothing of note. Now as we kind of scroll a little bit out, kind of start heading a little bit more into the Caribbean Sea here. Just a cargo, more. So as far as what's visible this morning, there's not a lot of interest right now coming out of the Caribbean itself. Out of the Gulf of Mexico, let's take a look here. It's just a Cessna, and then you're going to probably have your standard stuff flying out of Corpus Christi in general, which is what you're seeing here. Nothing fancy. Then your typical stuff off of Louisiana and Florida, and then off of North Carolina and off of Georgia. Nothing fancy there that I'm seeing. So now let's scroll on the other side here on the western or eastern Pacific. Not seeing anything of special note, just a lot of cargo flights right in here. So yeah, it's relatively quiet this morning, so take that as so far as you will. Off of the coast of California, probably the same thing as what we'll typically see. And really a lot of it is the same stuff that you on what I would consider normal. I'm not going to try to go through the United States to see if anything like a B-52 is flying around or the Doomsday aircraft. Just doing a broad one here just so that you, the viewer, kind of have an idea of what's happening. Alright, let's take a look at South China Sea and Japan. What I'm seeing is regular cargo flight stuff through here, nothing fancy. Now let's get a little bit closer here to Taiwan. Again, nothing fancy this morning as far as transponders being on. Let's take a look at this. Nope. Big storm over here, though, near the Philippines. Again, just seeing a regular aircraft, not seeing anything fancy. Gulf of Thailand. Let's take a look here near Yemen. Looks like regular flights. And typically you can see that. If you don't have this software, then you wouldn't necessarily see the common denominators. But if you see things like what's in front of you on the screen, where you can kind of see these flight paths, if you will, and that's where for the most part, you'll start getting an idea as you see these videos more, right? Like these are typical flight paths of cargo. Now let's take in Qatar here. Here's an unknown bad date. I always find those interesting. And here you've got this one. It's a Boeing C-17 Globemaster. Let's take a look at where it came from. So that particular one, as you can kind of see from the flight path, came from Germany, as you can see, and has traveled all the way to Qatar. And it looked like it turned off its transponder or something. And then now it's in Qatar, probably landing somewhere in Qatar. Now let's take a look at this one. This says it's unknown. Probably another U.S. military vessel or a cargo, because it looks like it's going along the same path as typical cargo, as you can see from my referencing. Because they'll typically go along here, but so will those Globemasters. In this case, the one Globemaster, as already mentioned, came from what appears to be Germany and is either landing in Qatar or is just being asked to monitor and go to Qatar for whatever particular reason. Now we're just going to kind of go in a little bit here to Israel. Yeah, it's pretty quiet today, other than what I see as typical flights with the Globemasters and mainly reconnaissance stuff so far. Alright, let's go to the Mediterranean, where there's been times off of Greece there's been activity. Oh, so you got a Hercules, sort of the same thing. It looks like it's came from, in this case, the Baltics, and is now heading into the Mediterranean, as you can see from the flight path radar. So again, just typical reconnaissance aircraft. And I've seen this for reference where you've seen it come from Qatar, Saudi Arabia, in that area, fly towards Europe, other times from Europe back to the aforementioned places, kind of going back and forth, and in some cases directly going from Europe, like Poland, Germany, Baltic states, and kind of crossing and kind of going the length of Turkey. That route, which would be for better reference, be kind of where my, kind of going along this path as my mouse is showing into, the Persian Gulf states, or it will come from this area and either towards Spain and then go into the Mediterranean Sea, or in this case it's crossed over France. And of course it makes sense that it would cross over France, considering what just happened in France yesterday with the drones being shot down over Brittany, France. And which, speaking of France, let's take a look to see if there's any heightened aircraft activity due to what occurred yesterday. And I'm trying something new, folks. Not everybody has Flight Radar 24, so I thought, why don't I try to do a video, once or twice a day that just kind of reviews and sees anything interesting across the world in these hot zones that may be of interest, just to catch you up. So hopefully you're enjoying some of the information provided. I'm kind of going through here. Looks like a lot of little activity coming out of the airports here near Amsterdam. Just a bunch of cargo. And of course, I'm seeing typical. Let's look at Poland here. And usually they got a drone in this area. Yep, and your standard drone. So typically just south of Warsaw or in the vicinity of Warsaw, you will see a drone aircraft. It'll say DRON. We're right here, nothing fancy. Yeah, so not really seeing anything alarming other than standard stuff so far this morning. So it's actually kind of good intro video. And we'll check out over here. Nothing, I'm not seeing anything fancy. There's some kind of test flight here called Diamond, various models. Not sure what that is off the top of my head. And then, of course, let's see if there's anything interesting coming off of the northeast. Because typically, if you do have B-52s or anything of special interest like those Globemasters, if there's any major events and the U.S. has decided they want to send a bunch of aircraft, typically the flight path will be northeast, and they'll kind of trickle along here as towards Europe in this direction. So let's take a look here. Not sure what this is. But it looks like it's come out of Portsmouth. Maybe it's some type of delegation aircraft, because it's, you look at the name of this aircraft. Well, it says cargo, but still, it's not really, the fact that it's saying not available, still interesting. Yeah, it's relatively quiet. Let's take a look now at the Washington, D.C. area. It's always important to kind of know what's happening here. We do have a Hercules that, looks like there's two of them. Yep, so there's two Hercules. Not sure, it could be training. or just standard reconnaissance. But since it is a Hercules, typically those are for transferring of military items such as jeeps, tanks, supplies in general, things of that nature. So there's two of them. So it could be, not really sure what they're up to or the purpose of that. But it's good to know that that's what they're doing. Airbus helicopter. So it's relatively quiet in DC as well. And then we've got over here in Carolina, typically you'll have, you've got Cherry Point, then you've got Bogue over here, and then Jacksonville, you have Camp Lejeune, and then you've got Fort Bragg over here, as well as an Air Force base. So, I know that area really, really well. So, but not seeing any, here's a Globemaster as well that has flying south along the coast, and as you see here, it's come from, remember I was talking about those standard routes. So I do have a Globemaster that is heading, that's now in South Carolina, just east of Myrtle Beach, flying in the rain. Not sure where it's heading. Could be Charleston for all we know, or who knows. Radar 24, it was a relatively gentle one. And if you enjoyed this content, hit like, sub, notice, and as always, thanks for watching. Stay informed. Bye bye for now.